We know how to write classes and how to instantiate them, but I think we have a history in PHP of doing include and require for files, and in reality, particularly with object-oriented programming, we don't need to work that way. We've got much simpler approaches, and that is to use autoloading. Autoloading only really works if your code is organized in a really predictable way. So usually we say you should have one class per file, and the file name should match the class name. The idea is that you could very easily tell someone, oh, this class, you can find it over here. So we have rules for where to find the classes. PHP can follow those rules. The auto-loading, literally, you just instantiate the class without having ever mentioned it before. PHP will go off, follow your auto-load instructions, see if it can load that class, and then try and run your code again. Only if it didn't find it when it ran through its auto-loading procedure will you find that you get the fatal error for the class not found. So we need to be quite organized about where we put things, and I have a toy project to show you where I've just put a couple of files, and then I'll show you how to make the auto-loading actually work in your projects. So here I have a library example, and inside my lib directory I've got a my app. Here I have both an interface and a class, because I'm going to talk about interfaces later, so this is my prepared example for that. But it shows quite nicely how I would usually organize my code. So if you look in the file called myclass.php, you find a class which is called myClass. And it's in the myapp namespace, and it's called myClass. The file is called myClass, the directory is called myapp. So you get this idea that the namespaces are the class names, and the way that we store one class per file and the file in logical directories means we can give PHP a set of recipes to find or auto-load our classes. So if I come back up and have a look at index.php. Now, index.php is just a super simple class which literally instantiates an object, and I've put the var dump there so that we can just inspect that we did instantiate the class that we think we did. I've declared here the autoload function. In PHP, I mentioned already that 2 underscores denotes a magic method. You'll sometimes see the autoload defined like this, but we can only have one of these in a PHP application. So if I show you this, and then I'll show you an alternative approach. So PHP, index.php, indeed loads me a myClass object. Namespaces are in the next section, so if you're new to namespaces, you should definitely watch that one as well. An alternative to declaring a function called underscore underscore autoload is to use the autoload functionality from the SPL library. This allows us to register multiple autoloaders. A common case is if you're using Composer, you'll register an autoloader to load all of your Composer libraries. You'll see lots of examples in the Composer section, so I'll try not to get distracted and talk about that now. But you'll have one autoloader for that, and then you might have another autoloader for your own classes that are specific to your application. Sometimes I'll end up with a third autoloader because I'm using a library which hasn't been updated for Composer, and so it needs some slightly special autoloading, or it has interesting uppercase file names or something equally silly. But the SPL autoload register allows us to work around that. So cast your mind back to when I talked about the anonymous functions, because that's what we're going to use here. The function we're going to use for autoloading is called SPL autoload register, and we're going to put a callback, an anonymous function, in here. I'm just going to hastily reuse the example that I have here. So I'm just going to take the name of the function out and close the statement. You can see that my editor is matching the brackets here. So SPL autoload register, it's an anonymous function that accepts a class name. And whatever the class name is, PHP will look at the current directory, into the lib directory, and then do a replace for directory separators for the namespace separators, and look for the file name that matches the class name with a .php extension. And if I run index.php again now, you can see that still works. So we instantiate the object. We don't include or require any files. Let me just put the code up while I talk about it. We don't include or require any files at all. The first thing that happens is basically on line 9, we say, I would like a new my class. PHP uses the information that we gave in the SPL autoload register function. It knows how to understand, follows our recipe, loads the correct file, and we can just go ahead and use it. So we never need to work out what's already been loaded, what hasn't been loaded, what the dependencies are, lots of require onces. That all goes away. Once your code is object-oriented, PHP can load those on demand using your autoloader. So make sure that you are laying out your classes, one per file, in a sensible directory structure.